And welcome back to Jeff Koinange live here at Citizen Television on this very last Wednesday in March, folks. Great show tonight, great debate. We've got Nakuru County Senator Susan Kihika. She's in the House, just back from a long trip abroad, by the way, with UDA folks. We'll talk about that and a lot more. And right next to her, Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang. He's had a busy day in the Senate. It's good to see you both, folks. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Asanteni sana. So real quick, let's get to the Supreme Court tomorrow. The ruling on BBI, right? It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Senator, are you holding your breath for this, or is... what do you think?
I'm actually thinking and hopeful that the Supreme Court, not to preempt, but I'm hopeful that they'll do the right thing and continue to keep BBI out there, to just throw it out, like the other courts below have done, from the High Court to the Court of Appeals, and now to the Supreme Court. I don't see what will change. I hope nothing. It should never have been there. I mean, it's their right to litigate it, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of those things had merit. So I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will see what the High Court and the Court of Appeals saw and rule in the same way. Yeah.
Senator, I'm not a lawyer, but, you know, it's not a ruling, it's a judgment, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's going to be important for this country for the Supreme Court to pronounce itself on the issues that were raised in the lower courts. And it's not just for this particular BBI process. It is to guide future constitutional amendments. This was the first major amendment to our constitution, and a lot of issues were raised with regards to the process, with regards to who can originate proposals, who can sponsor popular initiative, and even the basic structure doctrine. So I think tomorrow will be a monumental day, not just for Kenya, but even other jurisdictions that have adopted a similar constitutional framework like Kenya. You know, people thought that we were going to go for a BBI referendum before the elections. But the elections are here with us. We've got just 4 months to the next elections. So chances are, if the Supreme Court says that it's okay, you guys can go ahead, most likely a lot of these things will be done after the next general election. But personally, I think that for now, what we need to focus on are the pledges that will get us to be elected, pledges that can revive the economy, pledges that can get jobs back to the youth, pledges that can put food on the table. The BBI had a lot of some of those things. If you look at the manifesto of Azimio and the 10-point plan that Lordinger has, some of those issues were aspirations that were captured in the BBI document, some of them as policy, some of them as administrative measures, and some as statutory provisions. So in a way, what we wanted to achieve through BBI will be achieved through our manifestos. Maybe what we will not achieve would be issues around constituencies. Those are the issue of the 70 constituencies. But that will also be realized very soon, because delimitation is something that has to happen within a certain framework.
Okay, so real quick, is reggae stopped?
Well, reggae was just paused.
I actually believe reggae was stopped. I hope they will not revive reggae. Like my colleague here, Senator Kajwang, has said, a lot of those things, and we argued that from the beginning, and we said the country is not at a point where it can afford all these expenses to bring that document to life just to give a few people positions. Because really, ultimately, that's what it was about. My colleague here admits that even the big hula baloo they had about the constituencies, the extra constituencies, the process is coming up because it's there in the Constitution already. We didn't need to wait until BBI passes to be able to get those. Those who are entitled will eventually get them. If it's about, like, for example, the 35% that should go to the counties, like they wanted in the BBI, which they used as the maize they were throwing to the chicken, you know, I'm sure in Parliament they would have been able to they can even be able to do that without BBI. So I don't believe there was need for BBI. I didn't believe it then. I don't believe it now. We are in a crisis economically as a country. So I think that should be our focus right now. The cost of living is extremely high. Most people are not able to put food on the table. Most people are not able to take care of their families. We have seen the price of everything rise. So we are in debt, and we all know that, like, really out of control. So I believe BBI should not be a priority, like the courts have said before. We need to work on our economy which is part of what we as the Hustler Nation, the Kenya Kwanza formation, believe that is where we are right now. That is what is important. That is what we need to focus on right now, so that we can bring everybody along and make sure that everybody is able to provide food for their families, be able to afford a living style that has dignity to it. And so all these other sideshows about getting positions for those who are not able to get them through the ballot, which was, I believe, what BBI was trying to achieve, should really just be tomorrow given the contempt card again and just thrown out. Yeah.
So you're not shaking your head there?
Yeah, it's a very selective reading of BBI. BBI was a process. It was not just the constitutional amendment. It was broad. Policy initiatives, administrative measures, statutory and constitutional provisions. In fact, what is stuck in the Supreme Court are the constitutional aspects of BBI. But the policy aspect of BBI, I can say that some of the issues that were put in that document, remember the first document was fairly thick. They're being implemented. Some of the policy issues have already come before Parliament. They're being rolled out. Some of the administrative measures are already being rolled out. And some of the statutory issues, it is now our duty as parliamentarians to make sure that they pass in Parliament. I think if you want to kill a dog, give it a bad name. So that's why Susan is fixated with the issue of positions. And I can tell you, even in their coalition, they're having a serious problem. With the entry of ANC and Ford Kenya into their camp, there's been serious disquiet because they come in, they don't know what positions they're going to hold, and it's an ongoing narrative. They don't know how to accommodate their newfound partners. And so I know some of them quietly, because I talk to them quietly. They wish that some of the arrangements we had proposed in the BBI could be alive, because that way Rigathi would get his share, and Wetangula would get a share, and Mudavadi would get a share. Thankfully, she's out of that, axis, because she's going for Nakuru County, and I wish her all the best. But if she wasn't going for Nakuru County, I mean, she would make a good running mate or a good deputy prime minister. And it's BBI that would have fixed that problem for them. But it was not just about positions. It was broad. So let us not analyze it selectively when there are so many things about BBI that are currently being implemented. Even the issue of Azimio la Umoja, that is a child of BBI. Unity, bringing Kenyans together, making sure that you have politics where everyone feels that they are part of this great conversation and this great nation called Kenya. By the way, that is what we are doing.
By the way,
back a bit, Jeff, to what Moses here is saying, and I'm just smiling because I can't believe he's saying that with a straight face. On one hand, they talk about people coming together. And I think they were shocked when ANC and Ford Kenya came and joined UDA, and the formation continues to grow. So there's no disquiet on our side of the formation. Everybody is there to make sure that we are talking about Kenyans, the 50 million Kenyans, and not about, again, back to the positions. That's why when Moses talks about it, he's worried about what Wetangula, His Excellency Wetangula will get, or Rigathi, or the other, and all that. But that's really not our focus right now.
But can I ask you one quick question? When you guys were out of the country with Deputy President William Ruto, Kenya Kwanza, the alliance was very quiet, without its principle. Why was that?
Jeff, you must not have followed. We saw and we would see it on social media, and we kept up, and there were meetings all over the place.
They were only meeting in one section of the country?
No. They were all over the place, by the way. They were in the coast, they were in Western, they were in the mountain region. And so, and that's what really we believe in. It's about having a very inclusive formation where we are in every part of the country. And I don't think any other party would be able, or any, the other formation, which is the Azimio, would be able to do that. By the way, Moses, what's happening in Azimio? I noticed that all the candidates from the mountain have taken Baba off their posters, off their billboards, off their flyers and everything, and now they're just back to the dove.
Well, I also noticed that she's wearing Azimio colors today. That blue is Azimio. Kenya Kwanza is a one-man army. It's a one-man army. There is just one center of gravity. It's William Ruto. If William Ruto is indisposed, and God forbid, Kenya Kwanza, their reggae stops. It just does not pause, it stops. Because without William Ruto, there is no reggae in their camp. And I think that's also dangerous. Because you also don't want to build a government that is centered around one person. You end up becoming a dictator who cannot even share simple things like itineraries. That when you're in the US, Kenya Kwanza is in the US. There's nobody remaining here. Yes, I saw Kindiki and Wetangula address a handful of people at the coast while you guys were out there meeting clerks in the US. So I think you guys are, we pray for you. Really? So that you can be a constructive opposition, because you've always said that Kenya needs a constructive opposition. I hope you guys are learning the ropes so that you can be a constructive opposition post-August 2022.
Now answer her question.
But first of all, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, please hold him to, let him answer the question. Yeah. Why has everybody run away from the project, Raila?
You shifted the interview job to Susan Kihika, but let me respond. The chair of Raila's board is, you have people like Kipia governor running Raila's campaign. You have your governor, Lee Kinyanjui, being part of that orbit of, strong leaders pushing the Raila candidacy. So probably it could be Nakuru that you could have observed that. Our partners in Azimio, for example, the Jubilee party, they are rebranding. They've gone back to the trams, to the trenches. I think you're one of those who called out for a quick revival of Jubilee. When you guys were looking for an excuse to go to UDA, you were saying that Jubilee is dead, so you must find another party. Now Jubilee is getting revived. You thought that we were going to run ODM candidates in Central? Probably not. I think there's Jubilee has got more structures at the grassroots, and I think it's only fair. After we passed the Political Parties Act, that we can go into coalitions with parties with similar aspiration.
Moses is not answering the question. What I'm saying is, for this Azimio monster, whatever it is, the head of the ticket is Project Raila Odinga. What I'm saying is, in the mountain, it seems that things have become so thick that if we walked out of this studio today, there was a billboard not too far from here for one who is running here in Nairobi for governor, Gatia or somebody. Before he had a billboard with Raila and the R, and I don't know, inawezekana, whatever it is your slogan is. But now, if you walk out of here, it's just red billboard, him and Jubilee. So clearly there's something, and I've seen that all over Nakuru. When I'm in Nakuru, going there, I've seen Sicily Karaoke's billboard in Nyandarua. The Raila thing is gone. Are they not comfortable that they can sell Raila in the mountain?
The beautiful thing was, even if Raila is not there, Ruto is not on their billboards. So it should not worry you.
But it's not.
But
Raila in this one.
But, Jeff, what is this arrogance that we have, believing that it starts and ends with a mountain? How many regions, how many counties are there in Kenya? Have you seen what is happening in Mombasa? Sorry. What is happening in Kakamega?
We are raiding.
What is happening in Turkana? What is happening in the rest of the country? There's been too much obsession with the state of affairs in Mount Kenya region. And what we have observed, and the data is there, we have seen how the central region has responded to the vote in every election that has been held. The people of central Kenya are the most pragmatic. Politically, they're the most pragmatic. And I'm still convinced that in the next 3-4 months, there'll be serious shifts in terms of perception of who's likely to run the country. Let's be honest. The economy of Kenya is centered around the mountain for historical reasons. Tom Mboya, sessional paper number 10 of the 1960s, that talked about developing high potential areas. And Susan, you remember when we were debating the revenue allocation matter, yep. the matter came up.
We were on the same side.
Yeah, we were on the same side then. And even today we are wearing the same colors.
Yes.
The central region and the mountain region, I think in terms of being the biggest stakeholders in Kenya's economy, you cannot understate that. If you're the biggest stakeholder economically, you need stability, you need certainty, you need a government that will look out and will protect your interests as an economic player, Absolutely. Not a government that will give you favors. And you want to look at that potential government. Who are the people in it? Are they people who spend all their time on weekdays in court? Are there people who have been convicted of crimes like grabbing of land from persons who have been displaced by political violence? Are there people with lengthy cases of looting county governments? Are there people with even cases of hate speech? Are they people who, when they've lost an argument, they resort to issues like circumcision, etc., etc.? They will look at the parties and the players that are before them. And I can tell you the bulk of those people with lengthy court cases, with lengthy allegations, are on Susan's side. They say it's all political. They say it's a witch hunt. But birds of a feather flock together.
But back to that one, Jeff, we can't leave it alone. We can't leave it at that point. Really quick. The one thing that I know Moses has admitted, the mountain has become impossible for this team. And that is why suddenly you hear him talking about who said the most important place is the mountain. They've been lying to the country that they are climbing the mountain, but the mountain has become impossible, and that is why you see those who are on their side in the mountain have gone back to default settings, which is Jubilee and not the Azimio thing they're talking about. And I agree with Moses completely. The people of Mount Kenya are people who work very hard, like the rest of Kenyans. But more so, like you said, they want a government that is stable, they want stability, they want to be able to carry out their businesses in a very good and stable environment. And that is one of the key reasons why you have been unable to climb the mountain. Because when you think of stability, Raila Odinga cannot be in that sentence. ODM cannot be in that sentence. You are the stone throwers. You are those who will never concede to losing elections. And every time you lose elections, you go to the streets, you riot until you are bribed with a handshake. But this time, we want them to tell us, which, by the way, you alluded to the trip that we had abroad with His Excellency, the Deputy President. And if you watched him at the Chatham House, he did say, if he loses, he was asked, if he loses, will he concede? And the answer was yes, and it stops at yes. But for this guy's side, Project Raila, when asked the same question, always goes to yes, but if it's lost, I don't know, whatever it is he says. So it's never a straight yes, but it's yes with a but. So we want you to be able to tell us that if you are defeated, you will concede, and that would be probably the only time you would be able to start for the reasonable people of Mount Kenya to even listen to you all. Because we don't want a situation where you destabilize our economy like you have continued to. And when I say that, I mean your side, the ODM. So that is why you have been unable and continue to be unable to climb the mountain, because we believe in stability. Okay. And you do not provide stability.
It's you know, it's a very unfortunate propaganda. It's a very thinly veiled attack and reference to a community. When they talk of stones, when they talk of riots, do you know the history of the fight for democracy in this country? It didn't start in Kisumu. When we were fighting President Moi and seeking the return of multipartyism, the repeal of Section 2A, where was the greatest demonstrations? Where did we get the most stones thrown? It was around Nairobi, it was around Murang'a, it was around Kiambu, because these are people who had been oppressed by that government. Now, you forget, now you call us stone throwers.
ODM, I didn't say a community, unless ODM is one community.
And yet it is those stones that gave us the democratic space. That
no. Oh, like overthrowing the government?
That the stones in the 1990s is what gave us the multipartyism. The advantage that you have today, that you are earning a salary, having been elected in Jubilee, but then going to bed in UDA. It is those stones that gave you that space.
Which stones?
It is those stones of the 1990s that gave you this privilege you have, that you can go to a rally and call the president all sorts of names, insult even the mother, and still go back to your house and sleep soundly, and no one picks you. It is those stones that gave us the constitution that has created the county governments, where you are now going to be a governor getting 35% of national revenue. It is those stones that created...
Moses, by the way, the stones I'm talking about, and I did not, by the way, no, let's be very clear. I never talked about a community, because that is what Moses is trying to infer. I talked about ODM. You are known as the stone-throwing party. And that is true. I'm sure you cannot argue with that. It is one of those things that anybody, even little kids, can tell you. Anytime you lose, you go on the streets. You know, if you're talking about stones because you have been oppressed and you're fighting oppression, that is different. I'm talking about throwing stones, uprooting the rail, because you do not want to concede defeat.
But who told you you've not been oppressed?
No, I'm not. No, you're mixing issues.
When Matiba and Rubia were fighting for opening up of the democratic space of this country, stones were thrown.
Then don't refer to a community. I'm talking about Odia.
I'm not talking about Matiba and Rubia.
It's just one community, is it?
No, Susan.
Is it?
I'm telling you that those things you call stones that have been thrown are the things that have opened up the space that we can be on live TV and disagree with the president, and you can drive safely home.
Okay, by the way,
you couldn't do it without those stones.
All right, let me take hold of this now and ask you, speaking of the president, last week, in a shocking revelation, he alleged that his deputy, your boss, or boss of your party, tried to impeach him. Was that uncalled for? Where did that come from? In your opinion, where did that come from?
And I want to be very clear on this one. The president of Kenya was lying. And I say that without blinking, without fear. His boss, puppet Raila Odinga, came out, who was allegedly, based on the president's statement, together with His Excellency, the Deputy President, planning to impeach him based on what he said. Raila Odinga has come out and said there was no such thing. We are legislators in Parliament. You've heard from the National Assembly. We've heard from the senators. Unless you know something that I don't, there was never such a thing. We would have had. I mean, where was it? Who brought a motion? What were the charges? When did this happen? Nobody seems to have any idea about that. And the reason nobody seems to have any idea about that, you've heard His Excellency Deputy President William Ruto has said there was no such thing. Raila Odinga has said there was no such thing. As legislators, we never even had... I say again, the president was not telling the truth. The president was lying. And the president needs to apologize to Kenyans. However, since I've told you, William Ruto said no such thing happened, Raila Odinga said no such thing happened, no legislator is heard of it or was aware of it, of such a thing, then you need to perhaps call Uhuru Kenyatta here and have him come answer that question, so that then he can give us the details. Because as we stand right now, that is why I say it's propaganda. It's meant to divide the country. It's meant to incite a specific group, which is the Kikuyus. He has continuously done this from Sagana. He is now doing it from State House. It's a shame. It's embarrassing, and it should not be coming from the President of the Republic of Kenya.
By the way, Azimio leader Raila Odinga was asked the same question yesterday, and he said, don't drag me into this. I don't want to be dragged into it. Your thoughts, Senator?
As a man who comes from the lake, we have a saying that if tilapia comes out of the water and tells you that Nile perch is sick, you better believe tilapia. They live together in the water. You don't live there. And so, whatever the president said, Susan can dismiss it and call it all sorts of unparliamentary things. But if the president, who is the Nile perch in the lake, comes out and tells me that there's a problem in that lake, I will believe it. But not too long ago, you remember, there was some flexing of muscles. We had delegations going to Karen, the official residence of the deputy president. At some point, before the BBI vote came to the House, we were being told that there were 200 strong. They said they had numbers. They had numbers to defeat any legislation that could come from government. When the vote came for BBI, we realized that the numbers they had were probably telephone numbers. They were not numbers on the floor. But prior to that, every other time, they would do a presser in Karen, or they would do a presser just outside the Parliament cafeteria on those steps to show the world that they had numbers. And in fact, they even told the president to bring it on. If the president feels that at that point an impeachment plot was being hatched against him, The president there is right as a citizen also to express himself, to express his fears. He does not have to do it to make Susan happy. But that flexing of numbers was not just to defeat legislation. That flexing of numbers was intimidation to the president.
Okay, let me ask you this. Why didn't he do it then?
Why didn't he say it now? When it happened?
Why leave it to now?
Why now?
Well, I don't know. I don't speak for the presidency. But those two fishes that live in the lake, they know much more than we do.
And by the way, back to the numbers thing. Let me address that. Mm-hmm. The reason Moses is comfortably talking about numbers, maybe being telephone numbers, funny, very funny. He knows what would happen to our numbers. When they got the handshake, which was just a back doorway of just making sure that Parliament has been completely neutered and was no longer able to make any decisions on anything unless from those calls from the Hill or from wherever, from State House and from, I don't know, Capitol Hill? Where was that laundromat? Capitol Hill? So what would happen was there was a lot of intimidation on members, which he knows that. We all know that. You saw that, using KRA, ESCC, DCI, and everything. So that whenever our numbers would be, they would go after specific people. They would also offer money or whatever and all that sort of stuff and then intimidate others. And that's why you would see the fluctuation. But to even sit here and imply that by us giving press statements on issues, and generally on BBI, by the way, we would stand there and we still hold the same positions, that then you can infer we were trying to intimidate the president and thereby attempt to impeach him. Even he knows he's reaching. He knows he's reaching. But I'm sure you have to defend. But again, like I said, Jeff, that's a very serious allegation. I am surprised the president would say that, because he knows it's not true. And if it was true, by the way, I bet you money, if it was true, he would have said it then. He would not have waited and said it 4 months to go. It's because everything President Uhuru Kenyatta has done this far to try and make sure that he has stopped Ruto's momentum has failed, and failed badly, by the way, from the BBI, which has failed in every stage, and I hope it fails tomorrow again, to intimidating members, to wanting to make us sing his song, whatever it is, puppet Raila, and we have refused. Every stage, every way it has failed. He has not been able to achieve his objectives, and that is why he's now come up with these ridiculous allegations of being impeached, which is a lie, and you can show me the camera I need to look at as I say it is a lie to the president, because it is actually very, very unfortunate, and he needs to come out and give us the facts. Otherwise, withdraw, apologize to Kenyans, and stop inciting tribal groups so that there can be hatred across the country.
You know, Jeff,
go on.
Our constitution designates the president as the head of state and the symbol of national unity. And even where we disagree with the president, we must conduct ourselves in a manner that does not undermine that symbolism of national unity that he holds. By the time the president speaks and says such things, I believe he has deeply introspected. If there was an impeachment plan, definitely ODM was not part of it. And if in any case, that would have come up even pre or post handshake, it was never on the table. I think the most critical moment where we saw the flexing of muscles, and it coincided with, when Susan was whip, she was a very diligent whip. She was an excellent whip, I can tell you that. She did a job with the flair. She could reach across the aisle. She was not as partisan as she is today. I don't know what happens when the GK vehicles are withdrawn. The people suddenly become very acidic. There's something about those GK vehicles and the big offices that make polls become souls. It's a reverse metamorphosis. But if it was around the time when Susan was whip, perhaps she wouldn't have been part of the plan. But after she stopped being whip, I cannot be her guarantor. I believe she was capable of impeaching.
By the way, just for both your information, the president didn't actually come out and say that his deputy wanted to impeach him. It was sources inside that meeting, right? He never came out directly. He came out and
said it.
No, he didn't say.
No, he said it to the people in the meeting.
But we don't know that.
Oh, now they're backtracking because obviously he's been caught pants down. So now they're backtracking. But he actually said it. We have friends who are in those meetings. Nakuru, for example, I can tell you, for example, there were over 60 people in that meeting from Nakuru. Do you assume, Jeff, that I don't have somebody in that group out of 60 from Nakuru County who would tell me verbatim what was said in that meeting? He said it. But now they are backtracking because he knows it's not true. There's no evidence that would substantiate such a serious allegation. And by the way, Jeff, I tell you, if that had happened, we would have known of it then. Second, Moses has been very clear that ODM was not part of it. Yet when he said it was Ruto side and Raila side. So they are very clear they were not part of it. And obviously we are telling you we were not part of it. So this is just lies.
All right, let's switch gears here. Senator, nominations are coming up. And this is a shame on all Kenyans because not since Kanu days, have we held credible nominations. And you must both admit, not since the days of Kanu. Your nominations are coming up. You know they're going to be chaotic.
Well, we don't to be so pessimistic about them. I think we've done a lot of things. We've, as a party, ODM, we had a review of our electoral processes. It was led by Catherine Muma, who currently chairs our National Elections Board. We've done a lot of soul-searching and reflection on the causes of violence in our nominations. And I believe that the nominations that we're going to hold in the next few weeks are going to be different. Why? We are applying a variety of methods. We are using data, and you can't argue with data. We are commissioning opinion polls, different research firms, and looking at the numbers the way they look. Where someone has a clear lead, we believe that they ought not to be subjected to the rigors of a nomination. We are also looking at the constitutional requirement of gender. We've run away from something. Justice Maraga declared Parliament unconstitutional. In fact, this Parliament ought to have been dissolved because of the gender aspect. How do you then ensure that you've got the one-third gender for every political party? The party I belong to and the county I come from holds the distinction of having elected 3 women out of 8 constituencies. So Homa Bay County has already complied with that gender rule. How do you make sure that the same applies in Nakuru? If you're going to subject everyone to nomination, then probably it will be the strong to have their way, and in most cases it's the men. So we are also looking at affirmative action provisions to ensure that ultimately we get that gender balance. So we've got science, opinion polls, we've got affirmative action. We also have situations of consensus. Another good example is in my county, where the leadership is currently coalescing around one particular candidate, and I'm not afraid to say Gladys Wanga to be the captain of the team, and the rest to have different positions. And the discussions are ongoing, and if we can agree, then we won't have to subject ourselves to nomination for the post of governor. And then we have the ward positions. Now, for ward positions, our view is that for ward positions, we must hold nominations because ward positions are very local. You cannot decide on them from Nairobi. So ward and constituency positions, nominations, but a mix of that. So, Jeff, I can tell you that ODM nominations are going to be fairly peaceful. Where I foresee a lot of trouble will be in Susan's regions and those areas that are yellow, the yellow zones of this country. Because I think a lot of, they say hawapangwingwi, but every other day we see people going to Karen Kupangwa.
Senator Susan.
Moses.
Si mulipanga Kalwale. Mukapanga Malala.
No, you talked about consensus, and that's part of also what we are doing. I also want to agree with you, Moses, on one thing. I want us to be optimistic. We are doing everything we can as a party to make sure the nominations are free, fair, peaceful, and all that sort of stuff. But like he said also, there's different ways to reach there. Sometimes if, say, for example, like I have been lucky in Nakuru County, I don't believe anyone else has paid to run for governor under UDA. So in that scenario, then obviously I wouldn't be subjected to a nomination, because my big fight will be in August, because my main opponents are in other parties. So, and by the way, I congratulate Homabe. I like that. I like that Wanga will be the flag bearer. I think we must get to a place where we also make sure that women get a fair shot as well. So where we have strong women, I'm encouraged, and I like to see that. In our party too, there is the consensus. There is also even interviews where you can sit, be interviewed, and you saw that with probably the nomination for the party leader as well, or the presidential candidate for the party. There can also be times where maybe there has been scientific polling, and if one person is, say, at 60% and the other one is at 8%, where maybe we would sit at the table and be like, hey, maybe let's explore different things or different ways to go about it, so that we don't bring so much contentious nominations in that specific constituency, whatever it is. There is also so that those have many different ways: the consensus, the interviewing, the scientific polling, where maybe a person is alone for that constituency, so there's no need for nomination. So there's many different ways to get there. So we are also doing everything that we can to make sure that the nominations are free and fair, and so that everybody, even those who lose, feel that they lost fairly. Because then that's the only time then you would feel okay if I lost fairly. But if I lost and I don't feel like it was done fairly, then it's a problem.
Well, you know what? I think there's going to be a lot of tears. Any way you look at it, there will be tears.
And just by the way, I know they are wishing that our nominations don't go as well. But I'm sorry, Moses, you're going to have to, I would say you are going to have to pack a lunch, because I don't think it's going to be as contentious as you wish.
Well, we are, I think we are more practical.
But you guys win the prize.
We are more practical because we've staggered our nominations over a duration, so it gives space to do it properly across the country. I think you guys are doing everything on one day, which probably means that there'll be premium tiers on that day. It will be
Sikuya Machos. Sikuya Machos. It's
what Alia?
Taken into account.
But we wish you well, because we hope that you will give us credible people who will sit in the opposition benches in Parliament.
Lakini what Alia?
Machozi.
Upande wao.
All right, folks.
Upande wao watalia. That's for sure.
Let's take a quick break and come back. I want to ask you both the question. Party hopping is over. You can't party hop anymore, right? The deadline came and went.
Yep.
So my question will be, there's going to be a lot of people running independent. Imagine that National Assembly with so many independent. Obviously, there will be that. I mean, what are your thoughts about that moving forward? And also, Kenya Kwanza, Azimio la Umoja, if I'm an outsider looking in, they both look like the same thing. I want you to tell me what's the difference. What different thing do you bring to the table? What do you think? Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. Great conversation here with two senators. By the way, Senator Kihika is running for governor of Nakuru County. Imagine if there's a woman governor and a woman senator.
Possibly.
That'll be a first.
Possibly.
Wow.
What about the boy child? You're in trouble here.
The boy's been doing very well. The women are just catching up.
All right. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back in a moment. The boy child.